Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Dealer, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 9. Alright, so I made some changes. Mostly because I kind of just felt like doing it. The other reason is try to work out some issues. I have been doing some kind of seeing what my options are if I were to do something like all, full-on rush with no tanks type thing, either as AoE or as assassin, and been kind of reviewing those options. But for right now, I'm kind of sticking with tanks because I'm just kind of more comfortable with that. In previous videos, I mentioned that some of the issues I've been running into is my opponents will not ban any healers or tanks, in which case that leaves me in a situation where my last pick has to be, my last 5 end up being, 4 healers and Christiane usually, which kind of greatly reduces my options as far as DPS. And since they focus purely on my DPS, they'll take care of the ones that are the most threatening. So with that in mind, I was like, all right, well, I technically had 5 healers anyway because Mariel can be a healer if she needs to be. So I decided to go ahead and drop Liana. As much as I like Act-Agains are only useful if I can keep my DPS alive, which has been difficult for me. So with that, I dropped Liana. I also dropped Mu. As much as I really like the teleports and stuff, again, it's a situation where it's like, yes, it's utility for DPS, but if I can't keep the DPS alive, I'm going to need more DPS to make up for it. And with that, I actually picked Pirotess. So I've been gradually watching the Chinese matches for their season 10, and I did see one box that had Pirotess. Unfortunately, the match that used Pirotess did not win that round, but she did do pretty good damage. Pirotess, when she initially came out, was pretty awful, simply because her kit was kind of impossible to really reliably set up. Her talent is whenever she is below 100% life, she will get, at 6 stars, she'll get plus 30% attack and skill, which is a lot. To put it in perspective, Tsubame at 6 stars, if she's near 3 opponents, which is the max she can be near as far as benefits, gets plus 24% attack and skill, so she provides a pretty big boost. Then again, she's also SR, so her stats are lower anyway. The problem was, of course, you had to be below 100% life. And until her 3C came out, her 3C made it so she'll actually deal damage to herself as fixed damage, which will allow her to automatically trigger her talent whenever she attacks, which is a lot better. So with that, her kit actually became a lot stronger. That being said, she's still not very useful, simply because there's so many assassins now, and most of the high tier assassins just have so much built-in utility and mobility that Pirotess really can't keep up. But she's still usable. Like, it's not like she's bad anymore. It's just that everyone else is just so insanely good with either having high mobility like Zerida and things like that. The other thing that her talent does is if she has higher skill than her opponent when attacking, she will, before combat, she'll apply a strong debuff, which can be pretty useful. Besides that, she is an assassin, so she does have guard bypass and things like that, so all that good stuff. Also, some things that made her kind of awful in the beginning was her troop choices were really bad until Faceless came out. She does have access to Faceless and Night Elves, so she at least has strong troop choices. Anyway, speaking of Zerida, I did bring her back in. Like I said, I dropped Liana and Mu, and I replaced them with Zerida and Pirotess. Since I've been kind of favoring more assassins lately and kind of been getting more meteor of action, bringing in Zerida seemed like a good fit because that gives me more faction buffing options. Zerida can be kind of hard to use nowadays in the meta because she needs to be outside attack range in order for her to get her hide and seek active. So that's just some things I have to kind of take into account. But even if she can't get it active, she could still at least provide buffs for everyone else. Also, just in general, her setup for assassination requires a turn because she has to 3C herself usually. Anyway, with all that said and done, so this is the box I'm using. I did have a loss prior to this match, mostly in the ban pick phase. I kind of just screwed it up. I got rid of their primary tank and let them have Bernhardt, and if I hadn't let them get Bernhardt, I could have probably won with with Helena. But one thing to note about Bernhardt is he can be a physical tank if you want him to be, and that actually ended up costing me. And despite him being infantry, He is surprisingly bulky against Cav. Anyway, with all that, so let's go ahead and dive right into this match here against Andy Adam. So this character's, well, I guess I'll say he since it's Andy, but his box is, yeah, it's mostly AoE. It looks to be mostly AoE. There is some assassins, but it's mostly very, very much AoE focused. They did ban my Risen Seal, which definitely leads into the fact that he's expecting to do a lot of AoE and debuffing. I of course get rid of Wethem. I just don't want to deal with him. I have fought against him in World Arena. He's not fun to fight against. He's not impossible to deal with, but he's so maneuverable. It's just not fun to deal with him. Anyway, I take my usual tank Hilda. They start going after my healers. Yeah, that's actually something to note. So I only have technically 3 healers in Mariel. Of course, Mariel with her exclusive can definitely be very much a healer if you want her to be. I'm already down to essentially I'm already down to 2 healers at this point, so I have to pick a healer. Now another mistake I did on my loss is I kind of favored taking Sissy White over Mariel, and I really should have just grabbed Mariel whenever I had the chance. Even if I don't make her into a full-fledged healer, she could still provide healing until I attack with her. In any case, a lot of options to pick from. Obviously, they take Christiane, so that means high amounts of essentially access to the Princess faction buff. So with that in mind, I went ahead and got rid of their Sherry and got rid of their Lycoris. Went and grabbed Mariel for this. At this point, my opponent got rid of my last healer, probably expecting me in hopes of forcing me to be full healer with Mariel. That or my opponent didn't realize that Mariel can actually be a healer. Got rid of my Zerida. It's been a while since I've had Zerida be banned. They take Leona as their healer. At this point, like I said, there's a lot of threats to pick from. Definitely wanted to get rid of Himiko because since I'm all single target, Himiko is just the bane of everything. Her ability to just negate a single attack, just no matter what, is so ridiculously powerful. So that's definitely something I need to drop out. Honestly, my assassin game would probably be a lot better if I had bothered to get Himiko, but I just could not bring myself to take her. She's just too ridiculous. I also got rid of Bernhardt because honestly, Bernhardt is just so bulky. He's really, really kind of a pain to deal with for me. Assassins would have a lot of trouble actually killing him too. Went ahead and took the Crochet at this point. They start going after more of my assassins. They take Kruger. Haven't seen him in a while. I was actually kind of surprised that my opponent picked Kruger first. I would kind of expect to pick Bozel first over Kruger. But with this in mind, I was like, alright, well, I'll go ahead and get rid of your faction buffer and get rid of your strengthen. And I take Subame at this point. So I now have technically two assassins now. They actually banned my Pyrotes. I was kind of impressed here. I was actually really surprised by this. Banning Sherlinka and Pyrotes over Helena. I'm guessing, I guess that my opponent just expected that Christiane would be able to tank anything that Helena threw her away. I mean, despite being infantry, she does have access to phalanx, which is more than enough to kind of stop a calf charge. Did take Kayura. At this point, they don't really have any way of buffing. The only way they would be able to buff is if they take Florentia, which Florentia can't even get a faction buff, so her mechanic would actually get gradually run out eventually. Besides that, I did not want to deal with Hilda because Hilda can anti-crit, and I also didn't really want to deal with who do I ban? Yeah, I definitely did not want to deal with Elwyn because of his high mobility. So with that, went and took Helena. It's been a while since I've had access to her. And they take Florentia for this one. Alright, I did take my... as usual, I kind of ran out the timer in pretty much every phase of this game. Even during character and skill... Even during skill selection here, I was kind of trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do here. But before we go over my stuff, let's go through the opponent. Got Kruger here. I believe this is the standard AoE kit here. yeah, standard AoE kit, Midnight Feast, Dark Ward, Evil Overwhelming. With sorceresses, I mean, usually I think you probably take something a bit tankier. Christiane here. Floral Realm, Lady of her 3C, and then she has Flower Formation. So definitely favoring getting rid of these effulgence. She is only 5 stars. I'm not sure about Kruger. I think Kruger is 6 stars, I think. I'm not really that familiar with this kit. This Kyra is 5 stars. This Liana is 6 stars. And then this Florentia is 6 stars with exclusive. Kyra here has Star Slash and Star Sword. Now, something to note about Star Sword is it does not bypass guard. The main benefit of Star Sword is it's another one of those passive heals, which can be pretty useful. Leon here did bring Fighting Monks, went Act Again, 3C, and Windblade of all things. I don't know the purpose of the Windblade. I guess my opponent was hoping to do a little extra damage if necessary. My opponent is very healing heavy, to say the least. Florentia didn't bring any heals besides her 3C, which can act as an AoE. She did bring Mass Attack, so she can at least buff Kruger and Kyra. I think the idea was maybe favoring a bit more offense simply because Kyra can passively heal. I think that was the intention. I mean, besides Kyra, they didn't really have much for single target damage. I mean, Kruger's normal attack would do pretty okay with Sorceress Assist, but as you can see, he went full AoE as far as skills are concerned. So that was kind of my assumption. Obviously, the biggest threats, Kruger, Kyra. If I take care of them, my opponent won't have any means to actually kill me. Alright, so standard Helena, I brought Angels, since all their primary offense, of course, is magic. Bought Lucretia, single target spec. I was considering bringing an AoE. In hindsight, well, I was considering bringing an AoE, but with Liana and 3C, like, no debuffs are going to stay active. There's no point in trying. Hilda here, of course, standard kit with War Goddess. I brought War Goddess just because there's not really much you can do against magic range. Crystal Molders, of course, is the staple. Tsubame with Faceless, standard kit, favoring Quick Step. And then for Mariel, I went and stuck with Amazon Champions. I was a bit concerned maybe attacking Christiane since she's infantry, but Amazon Champions are tanky enough that they can probably survive a tank hit. And as for her kit, I didn't really change anything. I still allow her the means to be able to attack twice and bypass guard and things like that. And if I do need to do any healing, she passively heals 2 people every time her turn ends, which she can double up on with Enduring Faith. And then if she hasn't attacked yet, she can use God King's Aegis as a healing ability, which will dispel 1 debuff and heal everybody. So pretty standard stuff here. She does have the exclusive, so while she's in healer mode, she does go through cooldowns faster, which I didn't really fully take advantage of. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. So first thing I did was I went ahead and just backed away with Tsubame. I probably didn't necessarily need to do it, but I wasn't sure what my opponent was going to do with Kruger. Kruger, of course, was going to open with his Evil Overwhelming. Honestly, I kind of expected it to be on a tank, not a healer. It being on Mariel is actually the least consequential, because all I have to do is just move Mariel away, and she doesn't really need to be nearby to actually provide healing. But let's go ahead and go over this. Leona has an act again, so does Florentia. Florentia could also do Rush to give Kruger 2 additional movement, which will put him here, and then he can go to here. And then from here, he would be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She'll be able to hit everybody except for Mariel and Tsubame if he were to rush and be act again right now. If he was to be act again twice, like he would move here and then someone else move in to go ahead and do it again, he can get all the way to here and hit everyone except for Tsubame. Key thing to note, of course, is Dark Ward allows him to move 2 extra steps. So, and all of his AoEs are 5 span. So crazy stuff there. Alright, and he already popped his 3C, which gave him access to Ever Dark Abyss. So that's how that works. Okay. So yeah, at this point I'm trying to just kind of spread out as best as I can. I did shift down. Now this was actually a bit dangerous because Kyura exists. Kyura does move, does have the staff that extends range, so she does have 4 range with her skills. There's the mass attack setup. So right now my opponent can hit Lucretia. Now Lucretia does have her self-res, and more than likely might not even kill. Full HP sorceresses have pretty good M defense. Yeah, so ended up doing Rush. Now Rush actually made some changed the gameplay a little bit. So besides Lucretia, it could actually go after my Arcane Golem now. So I went ahead and moved in to Library Rebirth, get faction buff up and running. What was nice is my faction buff pretty much covers everyone but Helena. So yeah, 3C is a bit overkill, but it's our only means to guard bypass. So losing this means I lost the additional range on Lucretia, but it does mean that she's already popped her 3C. So all she has left now is Star Sword, which can't bypass guard. In her current position, she can pretty much attack anyone. Yeah, she actually can attack anyone. She could have even went after Mariel, but Mariel with Commandment and full HP, she's kind of safe for the most part, even with these little minor debuffs. So the range for evil, the evil debuff is 3. So anything that's within 3 range of her would apply additional debuffs. So I'm just keeping her 4 away from everybody, and so she's getting the debuffs right now. Do note that Kruger gets stronger the more debuffs that are on the field. So the act again was actually used on Christiane, and this was just to make sure that she remained guarded. If she hadn't have done that, Helena would have been able to just run in and kill. All right, Star Sword. So full HP in her own terrain and had angels. So at this point, my opponent has no attack skills active, so her attack range is now only 2 and can't guard bypass. And essentially, this was all an effort to try to just bait out AoEs. So there's that AoE. So one thing to note about Midnight Feast, applies 1 random debuff, and then it actually buffs all allies and makes it so they can heal themselves when they attack. And he's already capped out on total debuffs. But good news is it only hit Lucretia, and to heal her up, I went ahead and just passed turn with Mariel. Mariel could heal 2 lowest people, so it ended up healing Helena and Lucretia there. At this point, I ran into Chivalry, mainly to apply debuffs. I wasn't too concerned about the AoE damage. I did also break the shield a little bit. Also, I got rid of the Floral Realm AoE debuff or AoE buff. So with this, her armor's been nullified, and then his armor's been nullified. So it's just a minor debuff. And then at this point, I was completely fine with just moving away. With so much of this terrain out, I can kind of go anywhere I need. So my opponent's very much locked into staying within 2 spaces of Christiane right now. Alright. Resounding Might can only hit 2 opponents. This entire time I was counting steps on Tsubame. Tsubame, of course, has Breeze. Actually, does he have Breeze? Yeah, she has Breeze and 1 stack of her exclusive mobility buff. With that, she can get to all the way to like here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, and hit Kruger. But the concern I had was actually the AoE from Florentia, which can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, of course, Kruger can go to here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and essentially AoE up to that sort of span. So I was kind of just waiting and seeing what those 2 would do. Obviously, Florentia could have done her AoE and then immediately act again on Kruger. And so that's, as you can see, was the plan here. So at this point, since the 6 space line AoE was done, I was able to just position based off that. No kills yet. Almost killed my my Langrisser. Now that means Kruger's done. Kruger has used everything he has. It's possible he could have had a. It's possible he may have had clock, but it just didn't proc. But in this case, I wasn't going to leave him alive long enough to even attempt that. So I went ahead and moved in. Alright, Daybreak breaks the Sorceress buff. First, I have Flash Step, so first strike. And then 3C will reapply the stealth. Alright, so at this point I went ahead and did Enduring Faith to get an extra turn. And then God King Aegis just to heal up. The immunities didn't get applied because Langrisser has anti-buff right now. Yeah, so I'm just kind of moving in at this point, spreading out more terrain. So I can't really do anything with Tsubame for a little while. Her 3C's been used. That's her only guard bypass. It's going to take... Quick Step will give me an additional turn, but for the most part, it's going to be a few turns before I can do anything. And I'm going to need time to reapply buffs anyway. The evil buff is finally worn off, so Mariel will eventually be able to help out. And obviously the biggest threat here is Kyura. Now, since I've killed one of their units, they no longer have 5 units, so Kyura's mobility has been dropped significantly, as did her intelligence drop. She's about to lose her shield, which was almost gone anyway. And next turn, she'll have access to Star Slash again. Alright, so with that in mind, I went ahead and just backed away Tsubame, because her the stealth that you get from 3C is temporary. So regular attack did pretty okay damage. Did reflect some damage back. Went ahead and just pass turn in place, just to let the Crystal Molder heal, passive heal kick in. The annoying part, of course, is my faction buff and my guard is going to wear off kind of the same turn. Not much I can do about it, unfortunately. Went ahead and baited out the 3C, since the act again kicked in. So this was at full HP with Commandment active. I did not have, I did have M defense buff still active. Commandment reduced damage by 25%. And I did proc her armor, which reduced, I think it's 20% for ranged in melee. So essentially I reduced the damage by about 45%, which was pretty much enough to ensure she stayed alive. Even if I hadn't gotten the proc, it would have hurt a lot more, but it would not have been enough to kill. And with that, Kyura has no guard bypass anymore. All she has is Star Sword. So I was completely okay with that. And just keep spreading some more terrain. I'm taking the center at this point. I proc my armor. Yeah, pretty good damage. But at this point, even if I were to be a little careless here, it's not going to be enough. They just can't do enough damage. So here's Windblade. Yeah, did about 4,000. Not much. Even if they had combined all their efforts to try to kill Hilda here, he does have a self-res, and by that time I would be able to attack again with my units. Yeah, since the guard bypass is done, I can freely move in. Also, I don't need to worry about act agains. The only thing I could possibly worry about is being rushed. Actually, even without rush, Kyura can't really do that much. So went ahead and did faction buff here. Yeah, so I moved down here. This was just to make sure Kaira can't reach Tsubame. Tsubame's stealth is down. That last turn I did with Hilda ended her guard. She doesn't have any guard bypass, but she did have enough mobility to reach Tsubame and do a regular attack. It's hard to say if Kaira would have done much. Tsubame would have struck first and probably won the exchange that way. So it probably wasn't a big danger. In fact, it probably would have been a neat little bait. But I played it safe. Alright, regular attack. Negated her crit. Yeah, 6,000. It's like, okay. At this point, I reapply my buff. I did go, when I was applying these buffs, I did go Cav form, just to reduce Christiane's damage if she ever did attack, like this. Alright, negated her weapon. Wrecked my spears. Went ahead and moved in. So she did have first strike here, but that's okay. This was more just to apply a bunch of debuffs on her. Code creation. Alright. And at this point, my opponent can't really get rid of debuffs anymore because their Florentia doesn't actually have any heals. So just went and moved in. Now take a look at this damage here. Not on Christiane, I'm not going to do anything to that. Again, Christiane of course has first strike because she got rid of all of her stacks. Applying a bunch of debuffs, do my AoE, Bloodthirsty, Petal Storm. Yep. And there you go. So at this point, I don't really need the heals anymore. So first strike, lose some troops. I'm completely okay with that. And since I got guarded, my next attack will bypass guard. Super overkill. And I remove all of her debuff, or all of her buffs. And there you go, that's the match. So it was a nice little practice to kind of get a feel of dealing with AoE nonsense again. So I guess the key thing about the fact that I used only Mariel as a healer. So the important thing to note is, yes, there are a lot more powerful healers out there, but you don't need a lot of healing to win these matches. You just need enough healing. You need enough healing to ensure that your DPS stays alive or your tank stays alive long enough for you to just take out their threats. Once that's done, your healing becomes kind of irrelevant. So with that, I was kind of glad I was able to stay in Silver 1. At this point, I did unlock the... I have done 10 matches now, so I did unlock the skin here. It's for Emperor's Personal Guard and Elite Infantry. I was kind of shocked that it didn't include Heavy Infantry, for whatever reason, since no one is ever going to really use Elite Infantry at this point. But it's still a nice skin for Empress's Personal Guard, which the only people that use Empress's Personal Guard is Christiane, I think. I think she's the only one. I don't remember if Albedo has access. But yeah, like I said, I've been kind of tweaking the box to kind of mess around, and seen the final matches in Chinese Apex, seeing them actually do characters like with Puritas here. I was like, you know what, let's see if I can try make something different happen. If I were to bring in a quote-unquote another assassin, it would probably be Angelina. She's technically not an assassin, but the way I use her is, I think it's a pretty decent call to take her, simply because I ban Hilda usually pretty often, and if I ban Hilda, I can safely just fly in and do... Where is she? There she is. Still in her Christmas stuff. But yeah, with our 3C, as long as I don't let them have Hilda, I can push around their entire unit and kind of reposition how I want. So I may consider bringing her back, especially since I now have Zerida again. So that's some options. As much as I want to stick to just pure single target magic, the meta has kind of shifted because of Lucretia mainly, or Lucretia and Tensei Jessica, where a lot of units will take things like angels, or someone pointed out in the comments the troops, the cav troops that I saw Freya using actually has really high M defense. Where is my freaking Freya? Freya! I know you're here somewhere. No idea where she went. Oh, there she is. Yeah, the Templar Knights. So Templar Knights, I was like, oh, they only get benefits against demons, but they actually get an M defense increased by 40%, and they have pretty decent M defense overall. Yeah, it's even better than Exorcist. That's actually pretty crazy. So these are actually surprisingly tanky against magic, which is pretty impressive. So even if I were to able to get a clear shot on a target with Lucretia or someone else, chances of getting killed become less and less, especially against Christiane. Christiane's just really, really tanky against magic. So even if I were to bring back, Light of Genesis, or if I bring, Tensei Jessica, Lucretia, Young Jessica, and Naomi, sorry, I'll be able to maybe do some hits, but it won't. By the time I punch through that tank, they'll kill me with whatever kit they have, which is either going to be Assassins or AoE. So with this, I'm kind of leaning more and more towards Assassins. I'm trying to not go full rush strat, just simply because I'm not very comfortable with it. But I have kind of looked over my options as far as what I could do. Obviously, I have access to Estelle. I have access to Narm, who has Sprint. Of course, I could always go really old school and bring back Letitia. And then, of course, I have Akaya, who can provide an even better buff. But like I said, I'm going to stick with this box for a little bit longer and see what happens. If I could figure out who else to drop, I may bring in Angelina, and that will hopefully kind of flesh things out as far as my attempts to be a full-on assassin type thing. Anyway, until next time, I am the Depressed Dior. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 9. See you guys later.